This message is different from what you expected, and perhaps that dissonance you feel right now, that subtle resistance rising in your chest, is the first sign that you are ready to hear what your soul already knows. You came here seeking confirmation that they would return, that the waiting would end, that the silence would break open into reunion, but the universe has sent you here for a different kind of deliverance. Sometimes the most profound act of cosmic love is not the promise of return, but the permission to release, not the prophecy of reconciliation, but the blessing of completion. This is not the message that tells you to wait longer, to hold on tighter, to believe harder in a future that requires you to abandon your present. This is the message that says, you have graduated, the lesson is complete, and the door you thought was closing on your heartbreak is actually opening onto your liberation. Not every separation is meant to be temporary, and not every silence is meant to be broken. Some endings are not pauses but punctuation marks, final and necessary, clearing the page so that a new story can begin in ink that does not fade. You have been waiting for a sign, and this is it, though it arrives in a form you did not anticipate and speaks a truth you have been afraid to acknowledge. The universe does not always answer prayers the way we frame them. Sometimes it answers the deeper prayer beneath the words, the one our soul whispered when our mind was too afraid to listen. Your soul has been praying for freedom, even as your heart has been praying for return, and today, in this moment, those two prayers are becoming one. Write, "I am ready to hear truth," in the comments if you can handle this message. If you are strong enough to receive what love looks like when it stops begging and starts honoring itself. Not all intense connections are designed to last forever, and the depth of your feeling does not determine the length of their stay. There are people who enter your life with the force of revelation, who shake every foundation you built on sand, who make you feel more alive in 6 months than you felt in 6 years before them, and still, they are not meant to remain. They are soul teachers disguised as soulmates, catalysts wrapped in the language of forever, mirrors held up at the exact moment you needed to see yourself clearly, even if that clarity came at the cost of your comfort. This person was the earthquake, not the foundation, the wildfire that cleared the deadwood, not the garden that would grow in the ash. They were never meant to be the destination, they were the disruption that redirected you toward it. Carl Jung understood this when he wrote of meaningful encounters that crack open the psyche, encounters that force us to confront what we have kept hidden in shadow, not because they are meant to stay, but because they are meant to transform. Some relationships exist not to fulfill us but to reveal us, to show us the parts of ourselves we have been ignoring, denying, or suppressing beneath layers of politeness and performance. This person showed you your capacity for depth, for devotion, for feeling beyond what you thought yourself capable of holding, and in doing so they fulfilled their sacred contract with your soul. The intensity you felt was real, the connection undeniable, the transformation irreversible, and none of that means they were meant to stay beyond the season of their teaching. You have been confusing the profundity of the lesson with the permanence of the teacher, mistaking the awakening they triggered for the presence they must maintain. But spiritual truth operates on different terms than romantic expectation. Not everyone who opens your eyes is meant to walk beside you in the light. Some hand you the lamp and then vanish into the dark from which they came, and your task is not to follow them back into shadow, but to carry forward what they illuminated. There are gifts hidden in this pain, lessons woven so deeply into the heartbreak that you cannot separate the wound from the wisdom it delivered, and it is time now to name what this person gave you even as they took so much away. They showed you your strength by testing it, by creating situations that demanded you rise when everything in you wanted to collapse, by pushing you to edges you did not know you possessed and watching whether you would fall or find your footing on that narrow precipice. Every time you survived another disappointment, another broken promise, another moment of feeling unseen by someone you saw so clearly, you were building muscles of resilience you will carry into every relationship that follows this one. They taught you boundaries by crossing them, by showing you exactly what it feels like when someone does not honor your needs, does not respect your limits, does not treat your heart as the sacred territory it is, and in that violation planted the seeds of your refusal to ever accept such treatment. Again. They revealed your worth by undervaluing it, by creating such stark contrast between what you deserved and what you received that you could no longer pretend the gap did not matter, could no longer rationalize or minimize or excuse your way into accepting less than your soul required. This is the terrible grace of relationships that diminish us. They show us, finally and undeniably, what we will no longer tolerate, and that clarity becomes the compass that guides us toward people who will cherish what this person overlooked. They taught you that love without reciprocity is not love but performance, that intensity without consistency is not connection but chaos, that potential without actualization is not promise but fantasy, and these are lessons you could not have learned from someone who loved you well. This relationship was a spiritual curriculum designed specifically for your evolution, each painful chapter a required course in self-knowledge, self-respect, self-reclamation. They were not the villain of your story but the agent of your initiation, the one whose very inability to meet you became the catalyst for you learning to meet yourself. You have been searching for closure in their words, their apology, their acknowledgement, but the closure you seek is already written in everything you have become because of what you endured. The lesson is complete, not because they finally changed, but because you finally did. It is not that they will not love you the way you need to be loved. It is that they cannot, and there is a profound difference between these two states of impossibility that you must understand if you are to release yourself from the prison of waiting. Will not suggests choice, suggests that somewhere beneath their resistance lies the capacity they are simply refusing to access, that with enough patience, enough proof, enough perfection on your part, you could convince them to become what they are not. Cannot is the truth that sets you free. They do not possess the emotional architecture, the psychological development, the spiritual maturity to construct the kind of love you require, and no amount of your effort can build in them what they have not built in themselves. You have been loving someone at a level of consciousness they have not yet reached, speaking a language of depth they do not yet speak, offering a kind of presence they do not yet know how to receive or reciprocate. This is not a judgment of their worth as a human being, but a recognition of where they are on their journey, and where they are is not where you are, and the gap between these two locations is not a distance you can close by loving harder or waiting longer. Some people are still learning lessons you graduated from years ago, still making mistakes you have already paid the price for, still operating from wounds you have already healed, and you cannot drag them across that chasm through the sheer force of your devotion. You have outgrown this dynamic, even if you have not yet admitted it to yourself, even if the admission feels like betrayal of everything you invested in making this work. Growth is not always addition. Sometimes it is subtraction, the shedding of connections that once fit but now constrict, the releasing of people you love but can no longer afford to keep in the intimate spaces of your life. They are not bad, and you are not giving up on them. You are simply honoring the truth that love is not enough when it exists without compatibility, without reciprocity, without the fundamental capacity to build something sustainable and nourishing for both people involved. You fell in love with who they could become, with the glimpses of greatness you saw beneath their fear and dysfunction, with the version of them that appeared in rare moments of vulnerability or clarity, and made you believe that if you just stayed long enough, loved hard enough, proved yourself worthy enough, that shimmering potential would crystallize into consistent reality. This is the most seductive trap in the architecture of unfulfilled love. The belief that you can see someone's highest self clearly enough to call it forth, that your vision of their potential will eventually become the blueprint they use to rebuild themselves, that your faith in who they could be will matter more than their commitment to who they actually are. But potential is not a person. It is a possibility, and possibilities without action are just beautiful lies we tell ourselves to justify staying in situations that starve us. You cannot love someone into an evolution they have not chosen for themselves, cannot heal wounds they refuse to acknowledge, cannot build a future with someone who is still hiding from their present. The person you fell in love with, that radiant vision of their best self, exists only in your imagination, and in those fleeting moments when they rise briefly to meet it before falling back into the patterns that feel safer, more family, are more aligned with who they have decided to be. Subscribe if you are ready to stop waiting for potential to become reality. If you are ready to love people as they are rather than as you wish they would be. If you are ready to stop casting your pearls before those who do not recognize their value. Every day you spend waiting for someone to become who you need them to be is a day you do not spend finding someone who already is. A day you invest in a future that requires someone else to change, rather than a present where you are already met, already seen, already cherished exactly as you are. The universe is not asking you to give up on this person's potential. It is asking you to stop sacrificing your reality for it, to stop putting your life on hold while you wait for them to catch up to a version of themselves they may never choose to inhabit. There is an accounting that must be done, a reckoning with what this prolonged waiting is extracting from the treasury of your life, from the finite resources of your energy, your time, your capacity to remain open to love that does not require you to beg for it. Every day you stay tethered to someone who cannot meet you is a day you cannot fully meet yourself, cannot fully show up for the opportunities and connections that are trying to reach you, but cannot penetrate the wall of your devotion to someone who is not equally devoted to you. This is the opportunity cost of clinging, the invisible price you pay in closed doors and missed moments and potential futures that wither before they bloom because you are too occupied maintaining hope in a garden that refuses to grow. Every day you wait for them to change is a day you do not meet your true match, the person who is out there right now, perhaps also waiting, perhaps also wondering if they will ever find someone who sees them the way you see this person who does not see you back. Somewhere in the vast choreography of human connection, there are people moving toward you who will not make you question your worth, will not leave you analyzing breadcrumbs for signs of interest, will not require you to perform or prove or shrink yourself to fit into the small spaces they offer. But you cannot receive them while your hands are still full of someone who keeps dropping you, cannot hear them calling while you are still straining to hear the silence of someone who will not speak. The energy you pour into this unfulfilled connection is energy stolen from your own becoming, from the projects and passions and pursuits that wither from neglect, while you tend to a relationship that does not tend to you. You have been betraying yourself in small ways and large, accepting less than you need, rationalizing treatment you would never tolerate from anyone else, making excuses for behavior you would counsel your closest friend to run from, and each act of self-betrayal compounds until you barely recognize the person you have become in the name of loving someone who does not love you back with equal force. Walking away is not giving up. It is growing up, not surrender but discernment, not failure but the most profound success available to those who love themselves enough to stop accepting love that feels like starvation. There is a spiritual maturity required to leave what is familiar but unfulfilling, to choose the uncertainty of what might come over the certainty of what is not working, to honor yourself enough to close the door on connections that keep you small and stuck and separate from your highest unfolding. The universe has been trying to clear this path for you, sending signs and synchronicities and opportunities to exit gracefully, but you have been interpreting every open door as a test of your loyalty rather than an invitation to your liberation. You must release the wrong one to call in the right one. This is not metaphor but energetic law, the fundamental principle that what you cling to cannot leave, and what you release can return transformed or not return at all, and both outcomes are blessings because both restore your sovereignty. As long as you hold space for someone who is not filling it, you block the natural flow of new connections, new possibilities, new versions of love that are trying to reach you but cannot find room in a heart already occupied by someone who treats it as temporary lodging rather than sacred home. Letting go creates the energetic vacuum that the universe rushes to fill, but you must create the space first, must be willing to stand in the emptiness long enough for something new to emerge. This is not about whether they deserve another chance, or whether you are being too harsh, or whether you will regret this decision when you are alone at 3 in the morning wondering if you made a mistake. This is about listening to the deepest voice inside you, the one that has been whispering the truth beneath all your rationalizations and justifications and desperate attempts to make this work, the voice TH. It says, this is not it. This is not the love you are meant to settle for. This is not the relationship that will nourish the becoming you are being called toward. Walking away honors that voice, finally and fully, stops drowning it out with hope that has curdled into denial. Carl Jung wrote that we cannot change anything until we accept it, and perhaps what you must accept now is that this connection has given all it had to give, has taken you as far as it was meant to take you, and the next leg of your journey requires you to travel it alone until you meet the companion who matches your pace. The moment you truly release them, not with bitterness but with benediction, not with anger but with acceptance, everything in your energetic field shifts and rearranges itself around this new truth, and the universe can finally move on your behalf in ways it could not while you were still holding on. There is a particular kind of magic that happens when you stop forcing and start allowing, when you stop chasing and start choosing yourself, when you stop waiting for someone else to give you permission to live fully, and you grant that permission to yourself. The very act of letting go sends a signal out into the quantum field of all possibility, announces that you are ready now, ready for what is real rather than what is potential, ready for love that does not require you to beg for it or prove yourself worthy of it or wait endlessly for it to decide you are enough. Space must be created before it can be filled, and you have been so full of them, of the relationship, of the hope, of the heartbreak, that there has been no room for anything new to enter. When you release them, when you truly energetically detach and call your energy back from the place you scattered it in their direction, you become available in a way you have not been available since the moment you met them. You become magnetic to connections that are aligned, to people who see you clearly, to love that flows easily rather than love that requires constant effort to maintain. Share this message if you are choosing yourself, if you are ready to stop waiting and start walking, if you can feel the truth of these words resonating in the deepest part of you that has been waiting for permission to leave. They might return, transformed by your absence into someone finally capable of meeting you, humbled by loss into growth they refused while they had you. And if they do, you will know by then whether you even want them back or whether you have already moved so far beyond who you were when you loved them that reunion would be regression. Or they will not return, and you will discover that their absence was the gift, that the space they left became the doorway through which your real life finally entered. You do not need their apology to close this chapter. Do not need them to understand what they took from you or acknowledge the pain they caused or validate the reality of your experience. Closure is not something they give you through final conversations or explanations or the admission of their failures. Closure is something you give yourself when you decide that your healing does not require their participation, that your peace does not depend on their comprehension, that you can write the ending of this story without waiting for them to agree to the terms. You only need your own permission to move forward, your own recognition that you have extracted every lesson this connection had to offer, your own willingness to carry what was beautiful and release what was harmful and walk into your future unencumbered by the need for them to see you the way you needed to be seen. They may never understand what they lost, may never recognize the gift they discarded, may never reach the level of consciousness required to comprehend the magnitude of your love or the rarity of your devotion, and that is not your problem to solve. Their understanding is not necessary for your liberation. Your understanding is, and you understand now that you cannot heal in the same environment that wounded you, cannot grow in the same dynamic that kept you small, cannot become who you are meant to be while remaining tethered to someone who needs you to stay who you were. Closure is the moment you stop seeking it from them and start creating it within yourself, the moment you decide that the story is complete not because it ended the way you wanted, but because you are choosing to stop writing chapters in a book they abandoned long ago. You close the loop by releasing them from the role you cast them in, by accepting that they were never going to be your forever, by blessing them for the lessons even as you refuse to sign up for remedial courses in pain. The power has always been yours. You have simply been waiting for them to give you permission to use it, but permission is not required when you are sovereign, when you are whole, when you are ready to stop being a student and start being the author of your own becoming. There is a future waiting for you on the other side of this release, a version of your life so different from what you have been living that you will look back on this moment and understand why the universe refused to let you settle, why the door kept closing no matter how many times you tried to prop it open, why this person could never be what you needed them to be. Someone is coming who will not make you question whether you are loved, will not leave you decoding messages for hidden meaning, will not require you to diminish yourself to fit into their limited capacity for connection. This pain was the preparation, the refining fire that burned away your tolerance for half-love and almost commitment and potential that never materializes, and when your true match arrives, you will recognize them by how easy it feels, how natural, how free of the anxiety and confusion and constant negotiation that characterize this connection. Your real love story is just beginning, even though you cannot see it yet from where you stand in the wreckage of this one, even though it feels impossible that anyone could make you feel the way this person did, or that you could ever open your heart again after how deeply it has been wounded. But you will, because that is what hearts do when they are loved properly. They heal, they expand, they become even more capable of depth and devotion than they were before the breaking. Thank this person silently for the lesson, for showing you exactly what you do not want so that you will recognize immediately what you do, for loving you badly enough that you finally learn to love yourself well. Then walk forward without looking back, without checking to see if they are watching, without waiting for them to call you back. Your next chapter does not include them, and that is not a tragedy but a triumph, not an ending but the beginning of everything you have been preparing for without knowing it.